We're live, bro.
I should bring this closer. We can lean back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't want to be like in gamer. That's how I play Fortnite here.
In gamer position.
It's straight up. I get so low, especially like once you get to like the top 5 or whatever. I literally just like fold over. Like I'll be casually playing until I get like a good gun, and I'm like, oh, I could do this, and I literally just like.
Gamer position.
I'm like here, elbows tucked on the edge.
He does get pretty low.
And then I lose.
And then Rudolph, the spirit of Rudolph descends upon.
I think that's the true gamer posture.
Should we turn it on her?
No. Absolutely not.
You dummy.
Alright, boys. How it go?
It go pretty good. How's your life been?
It's okay.
Jerry moving the work. Your whole freaking mic.
The setup system. Can you pick us all up?
It is picking you up.
Ah!
Thank you for letting me edit that in post. Thank you for making my job easier.
That's the signal. That's how we knew to start.
Yeah, that's how we know.
Once we have that COVID cough.
You have to get tested before we start every show.
Jeez.
This is the bubble. The BoolCast bubble.
Yikes.
The Bool bubble.
The booble.
Alright. So welcome, BoolCasters, to episode 2 of the BoolCast. Today we dive deep into memory, to trauma, and mostly just what makes a group of people a group of people. Alright, so with me we have Wyatt and Joe as usual. I'm Thomas, your host. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of this BoolCast, I want you guys to think about this question.
Okay. No problem.
What do you guys think? How do you guys think shared trauma affects people's relationships with each other? What do you guys think? I think that's very important in times like these when there's a lot of trauma just going on in the world. I mean, that's all of history, but how do you guys think shared trauma affects the relationship between people?
The first thing that pops into my head, and this is like some vague study that comes to mind of just like most relationships that come out of trauma end in divorce. For some reason, that's the only thing that pops into my head. And I will say that that's my answer.
I wasn't going specifically for romantic or couples. I just meant relationships in general.
I'm just saying that's what came to my mind.
Gotcha.
First thing that came to my mind was 9/11 for some reason. That's interesting because we just had this big explosion in Beirut. I imagine, and this is based off of no scientific finding, I just imagine if people experience the same trauma, and I guess it depends on how severe the trauma is, it should create like a binding effect. Like after 9/11, America was supposed to be like a much tighter community where people were more focused on like national identity and fighting terrorism and all that stuff. And that's how we got TSA.
That's true. The dreaded TSA.
We did a good job.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I think based on your guys' two perspectives, there are shared traumas that can either lead to people separating, it causes rifts, or it can bind people together under a common umbrella. What do you guys think distinguishes those two scenarios? What makes some trauma lead to unity and some trauma lead to division? I
guess it depends on what the trauma is, how severe it is, but more importantly, kind of like the attitudes used to perceive it. Difficulty in, let's say, trauma or trial in a marital relationship can either push people away from one another, or in some cases, it can push people towards each other. And I guess it really just depends on a lot of things, but just like the attitudes in which you perceive the trauma, probably like a fair amount of RNG is is a big factor.
RNGesus helps out a lot here.
Yeah, RNGesus, we pray to that. I mean, not trying to take a super nihilistic view, but there's just a lot of luck in just surrounding the events.
So, from your perspective, if I could sum it up in my mind, it sounds like a part of it has to do with the circumstances those people found themselves in, but also half of it is the mindset of those people afterwards.
Yeah, while they go through it and how they perceive it and how they want it to shape the outcome.
Gotcha. Why? What do you think? What do you think distinguishes those two groups of unity and division?
I think it comes down to like the person's psychological bent before going into it. Basically, like any kind of traumatic experience in my mind, like now gives that person a new set of lenses to view the rest of their relationships.
Okay.
So it's like whatever happens, we could be talking about like trauma between certain people and then they come out of that together, or like a person had a traumatic experience and then now for the rest of their life, all their relationships are now filtered through that. So I think it really depends on like what does that person take away from the trauma. I'm going to harken back to 9/11 since we're on the topic, because like on one hand you could take that situation and then now you have a greater appreciation for your community and, you know, like first responders and things like that. You could also come at it from a point of anger and just be like, wow, now I hate Muslims. And that is your reaction to that, where now you have this perception of people that is a negative thing. So, you know, everything put aside, it depends. That's my answer.
All right.
See, RNG.
That's a good answer. I want you guys to think through this while we're doing this podcast about your answers and like how those two groups come to be. Because we're going to now talk about a very specific event that I think brought people together, and this event was pretty traumatic. This might be in jest, but also this is a real topic because like I do think it was a traumatic experience that brought this group together. All right, I want you guys to time travel back to me, to sophomore year of high school, to Quaker Meadows.
Ooh. Okay, so to describe Quaker Meadows to you, it was a church camp that we went to in high school, but it was a huge budget cut in regards to what we were used to. So like we would go to like a camp that was run by actual people, and like
as compared to fake people.
Yeah, and like it was programmed, and there was like staff that cared. And like it cost money, and it was, you know, an expensive thing. For this camp, it was like, you know, it kind of reminds me of like when Tony Stark gets taken hostage in Iron Man 1, where he kind of just like, they put the bag on him and then he just like ends up in the cave. I feel like that's how I felt on the bus. So like we're going up the hill and then he's just like, all right, turn left now. And into the woods we go, and I'm just like, they're going to just line us up and shoot us all. So if that gives you the tension that we were feeling, that's pretty much what's going on in this camp at the time. So it's a really dingy camp, terrible housing. The majority of the place is going to hurt you in terms of the environment.
Yeah. If you were to tell me that it was just a prank, like Quaker Meadows was a joke.
Gotcha.
Like, oh no, this is actually just
Sal from Impractical Joker shows up
as
the leader.
Like, we're gonna send your kids to a quality Christian summer camp, and then you show up at Quaker Meadows, and it was like, oh, psych, we lost the check to go to real camp.
It was the fire festival.
Yeah, we actually sent you to Christian like youth Burning Man. Just burning.
Yeah. Burning Man with no music or DMT.
Yeah, or anything.
There's no fun then.
Yeah, I guess.
Well.
So yeah, but the reason I bring this up is because it was a traumatic experience based on the amenities and the food, and a lot of other stuff we'll get into. But at the end of this, it brought together a youth group that before this, I would say, was not a cohesive unit. But then after this, I would say we're truly
we were a unit.
We were a unit. We were a community after this. Let's talk first about the fun parts, the awfulness of this camp. Joe, can you explain the sleeping or trying to sleep conditions of this camp?
Much like our current house now, I would say Quaker Meadows lodging facilities at the time were, I cannot tell if it was under construction or if it was just never completed. Like, I couldn't tell which part of the process they gave up in. They gave up at some point. I couldn't tell which part.
So which part of the timeline are we in?
Yeah, exactly. So I remember, so for us it was a high school guys. We were in 10th grade this time. I remember we were on the second floor, if you would call it that, of this lodge. I don't know how many people were housed in the entire Greater Lodge, but we were on the second floor in the room, and I remember distinctly, everything was wood. Everything. The bunks were made of wood completely. I don't know if there was metal screws. They might have been wood, just literal wood.
I think the only metal were the adjacent nails. Rusty nails.
Yeah, so there were nails that actually came out of the ceiling boards, but like I guess the people didn't want to nail them all the way in for.
But they nailed them too far in, all the way through.
Maybe from the top. But needless to say, this building would have been condemned immediately had an inspector went to it. Thankfully, no inspector went to it, probably.
Or not, thankfully.
Yeah, there was no window.
Wait. There was a gaps.
Okay, yeah, let me explain.
A vacancy is not a window.
Yeah. So there was a cutout for a window, but there was no screen. There was no sliding window door. It was just two wood panels that you would swing like as if you were in like medieval times. Yeah, if you were
like the one the sheriff walks in and hits him in the back.
Except you wouldn't want to walk through those things because it was a window. And furthermore, our window would face the girls' cabin, and we would, because it was just two wood panels with no real way to close it and lock it at night, it would open. So I mean, if you were to tell me this was a ploy by Scared Straight for kids for troubled teens,
Scared Saved.
Yeah, Scared Saved. It's some Christian tactics. I would believe it. But my understanding is the top bunks, which I had, was inches away from the nails that were literally sticking out.
It's true.
Of the ceiling boards. So basically, this camp. The lodgings was a death trap, at least for the guys.
It was like sleeping in an Iron Maiden. Where the spikes are if you move at all, you just get...
Yeah.
All right.
It was rough.
I think you're talking about the structure. Well, Wyatt, can you speak about the occupants and how they affected the sleep of
Joe,
this?
freaking messing with the microphone.
I'm sorry.
How did the people sleeping with you affect the sleeping arrangements of this camp?
I'll just say this. None of them matter except Tim. So, Tim is really the only factor involved here. So, it's a miracle that people sleep around Tim.
I did it for many years.
Yeah.
I tried to. I don't know if I actually...
I don't know how you did that.
Maybe I never hit REM sleep. Maybe Tim was temporary sleep apnea for me.
The circle on Joe's eyes are just remnants still.
He just giga drained your sleep. So whatever sleep you were getting, he just kind of inhaled.
Yeah.
Well, could Tim inhale? Can he inhale?
Let's provide some backstory. Why don't you explain why it's so hard to sleep around my cousin?
Tim has an absurd asthma issue.
Actually, it's
asthma?
been diagnosed as a condition called Strider.
From Lord of the Rings.
That's a character, bro.
Like Aragorn.
That's actually the person that's in his lungs.
That makes sense.
Screaming.
Like the ring wraiths.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know what Strider is, I don't know what Strider is.
Please tell us.
All I know is that's something to do with
email us at.
Yeah. This is actually how I built this. This is just, it's a condition in which some part of your trachea is either too small or too large, and air...
His was both.
Yeah.
He got the worst of both.
It was really bad at night, so it sounds like he has constant asthma and he's wheezing all the time.
Yeah.
But at night, because his airways just made this horrendous bagpipe whistling. And
croaking as well in there.
Yeah. It sounded like literally the screams of the dead at night.
Which is no fault to him.
Yeah, it
which is such a shame because it's not like he could control that. And actually, he has a machine that helps him now, and it works wonderfully because he spent the night here, and I was I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, but
so good for him.
Growing up, let me just say why it's so tough. Is when Tim's sleeping, he's not affected by it because he's sleeping, and he falls asleep really quickly. But his Strider makes him basically snore like a shrieking witch, but so loud. So incredibly loud. So it sounds not even like a human. I remember one time
it's not a human.
Thomas was sleeping over at my house, and Tim was in another room of the house.
Yes.
Sleeping at night. Literally down the hall.
This is the first time I experienced the sound, by the way.
And he was What is that? What animal is that? Is that the chupacabra?
I thought it was coming from outside. I thought it was an actual animal.
There's some like crazy raccoons going on in that neighborhood. You got a bunch of animals in the backyard.
Yeah, back in my mom's place. So, just say sleep quality with Tim plus Quaker Meadows, probably below 0.
Yeah. I just want to also say about this actual like structure of this place, the bunks themselves. You couldn't climb. You had to climb up them super fast, or else they would actually tip over. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Like to get to the top of the bunk, you had to either have someone already in the bottom bunk, or you had to climb up instantly, or else it would tip.
You needed some counterweight.
Exactly.
In the bunk.
And also the bunk structure. Do you guys remember that Tim, a wall fell through his bunk?
I don't remember that.
Do you not remember that?
He crushed through it.
He went through the bottom. He was on the bottom, thankfully.
Oh yes,
and he went through it.
This. Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was a very sketchy sleeping arrangement. Let's move on to the next thing that made this camp both traumatic and beautiful. Let's talk about what Andy's journey was through this camp. Let's talk about the main, like, you know, the few big events that happened surrounding our friend Andrew.
This is actually so important because like this really shapes like so much of our group.
It was very formative
for many people.
Yes.
And that's I think of it in like 3 parts. There's like the Mark saga, the Jesse saga, and the Andy saga.
Yes.
And all 3 of those were life-changing events.
Yes.
All 3
Literally.
of them. Yeah. Andy has made me laugh harder than any human probably will ever do.
It's true. It's actually true.
Yes. I remember, this is a side, but like I remember in college I had to write a paper about a very memorable moment. And the first thing that came to my head is like, I could write a paper on Andy's rap. Straight
Wait,
up.
which one?
Shout out to our rapper.
The cereal rap. As hands down the funniest moment of my life.
Yes.
All that to say,
Andy.
so Andy has written some beautiful pieces of music, but none of that had happened. This was like the genesis, his superhero origin story, where like he fell into the toxic waste, and then he came out a lyrical genius.
Literally, a accident happened to him, and he came out of this a different person.
It's like Poison Ivy. It's exactly like Poison Ivy.
He always had the love for it, but now it was part of him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I love rap, and then
I
am rap. So Andrew's at the local pool.
At
which is the size of like
let's give some context to Andy. Like, explain to the listeners.
What's he look like and stuff?
Andy's like 8'5", 9'10".
He's a third.
Because like I'm like 6'5", and there's no way that he's 6'5".
He's a very tall, pale man.
Yeah,
very
good
tall.
Friend of ours.
Grew up in the homeschool like textbook. If you looked up homeschool in the dictionary, it would probably be him. Yeah. Very talented, very brilliantly smart, athletic guy. Like he's a great guy. Shout outs to Andy.
Yeah, but also the whitest man you'll ever know.
We never will know.
I felt dwarfed, and it was terrifying.
Dwarfed by his what?
His whiteness.
Yes.
I would dare say, if you shone light on him, it would reflect. He was like the moon. He was the moon.
He was like a waning crescent.
Yeah.
So Andy's at the pool
at Quaker Meadows.
Yes, and Andy's trying to do a backflip off the diving board. He's never done a backflip before off the diving board.
But that's how you know he has gumption.
It's props to him because I'm actually terrified of trying to do
Andy
that.
Does have gumption.
For the very reason that this situation happens is the reason I've never attempted a backflip. So Andy's grinding this backflip probably for like a good hour.
Oh yeah, he's more probably. Honestly.
Yeah, and we're just chilling, like watching this. But Andy's getting torn up. Like he's consistently belly flopping
and
like,
back flopping. Sometimes.
Yeah, like he's not getting the motion, the centripetal force to like
but
keep
he's such
going.
a tall person. I wonder.
It's harder, obviously.
If it's more. Yeah, it's definitely more difficult.
It's just like a continuous slow motion splat. Let me do it every time.
Yeah, let me explain to our listeners. Imagine a giraffe trying to do a gainer off of a diving board.
This the amount of time it takes for the outer limbs to move.
Yeah.
The speed you have to make your outer limbs go is so much faster than a shorter person.
Yeah. Imagine, like, think of a giraffe and like a wind turbine, and combine those two things, and that's like the attempt.
I think what was disappointing, or I think where he was struggling the most, is just he was not getting like any jump. There was no vert to anything he was doing. It was a little like toe skip,
Yeah.
and then just like interstellar free fall. And so like the definition, if the definition of insanity is like keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, he was literally just like, God, and like killing himself. So we're like crying, laughing, because like. We want him to succeed, but he's killing himself
It's
for
killing us in the
hours.
process,
But
too.
eventually he gets it.
Yeah.
And we freak out. And we're like, oh my gosh, he did it. He did the backflip. And then we gather more people around and we're like, do it again.
We like hype him up.
Yeah, because like we know you can do it now, do it again.
Now we got a crowd.
Yeah.
The gang, the whole camp.
So he jumps, corner of his head, schleish, right through the diving board corner.
Yeah, he gets the rotation.
He gets...
No, he definitely completed it, first of all. It's just that his head also hit the...
His head hit the corner of the backboard.
Yeah, that would be a rebate. I would run it back. But
If
he couldn't, because he's now bleeding out at the bottom of the pool.
Yes.
Now we're terrified.
I'm not laughing.
Okay, no.
I'm not
Freeze.
trying to laugh, but it's...
I don't believe you.
It becomes so much more funny.
Okay, wait, freeze the
It's
story.
horrific,
Freeze the
it's
story. I
traumatic.
want to just paint the picture so our audience has where the stories are now. Crowd around the pool. We all watching Andy. We had just seen him smack his head against the diving board, and we see blood coming out of his head
And
while he's floating in the pool.
floating in the pool.
What happens next, Wyatt?
We see his beautiful blonde locks like
Get red.
floating down. He's trickling down. The blood is just pooling up, and we're like, oh no, like
He
somebody do something. And so we have a lifeguard up at the top,
Someone call it.
be like, oh, good, you good, bro? And we're like, wait, what?
Let me explain. This lifeguard, who questionable whether or not she actually was a lifeguard at the time.
I actually don't know either if she had credentials.
Yes, but she had the lifeguard suit on, and she was first off. She told everyone to get out of the pool,
Good play.
and that's probably good procedure. But she also did not do the next step that you would expect a lifeguard to do to help someone who's bleeding from the head at the bottom of the pool. Is she didn't jump in the pool.
So, I had actually been fact-checked on this by a residential lifeguard. According to this person, you're not supposed to actually do that if they're capable of getting up to the surface, which he clearly was. So, it looks bad, but she would risk herself going in the pool with all the blood. She would only have to do that if he was, like, still at the bottom. Like, unable to get to the top, which he clearly got to the top.
Eventually.
So she actually did the right procedure.
Okay, never mind.
But the posture was terrible as she was just like snacking on some like ruffles
While this was all happening.
and just like, oh, what? That's crazy,
Good
bro.
luck, bro.
Yeah.
Here's to make
he's,
matters
like,
worse, though.
bloody though.
Yes, and then one last thing is, I've heard that the lifeguard was either deaf and or blind. And to
Where
me,
did you hear this?
What are you talking
this is
about?
literally what I was
Some
told.
urban legend.
No. I heard that.
I heard
Helen Keller was our lifeguard.
Yeah.
I heard she had tentacles, bro.
So
I heard she
from
lost
what
her
I
voice.
remember is someone telling me that the lifeguard was deaf also,
And she had fake legs.
which was like doesn't sound.
Yeah.
In my mind, before I knew that
And she had Strider too. And she was 7'8".
she couldn't be 7'8". I'm 6'5".
That was good.
I mean, this is just what I've heard and what I was told, which also made me laugh, but not supposed to be laughing. But because in my mind, before I knew that she wasn't supposed to jump in, I was like, being deaf doesn't mean you can't swim.
Are you sure?
She was 7'8".
We'll do some research on that. We'll get
Yeah,
back to
we'll
you.
get back
I'm
to
not.
Email us at boolcast.gmail.com.
Can deaf people swim? Let us know in the comments.
If you're deaf and you hear this right now,
If you're listening,
if
can
you're
you
listening,
swim? Can you swim?
I'll say it louder for you.
beep, 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 just-
Maybe.
That's not, I still can't hear that, bro.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so here's the point. Andy's dying. He's at critical condition. He's on his last little heart in his Legend of Zelda life. So he crawls out of the pool.
Literally crawls out of the pool.
They wrap him up. Our youth pastor, who has some medical training, runs up, just wraps him up like a mummy, and we don't see him for a couple hours.
He goes
He's
down the
gone.
mountain.
He goes down the mountain to
hill.
the hospital, and we're like, "Oh boy, our man's is gonna die."
And this was like the second to last day.
Yeah, it was like close to the end.
This
So
was
we're
like on Thursday and we were leaving Friday.
really dampens the mood. However, this is where the story really shines.
Yes.
Don't worry. This is a happy story.
Yeah, it's a good story. Our man comes back up the hill the next day.
Yes, my boy.
And he's all bandaged up, and we're like, oh,
He got
you know.
several stitches, I believe, in his head.
That's
in his
right.
dome.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And
All for the backflip, which he got.
yeah, which we should
Which
yes,
is a huge props.
We really should give him this one. He gets
Yeah.
the W, not the
Yeah,
L.
in more ways than you think. So he comes up to
And
us.
he had the option. His parents actually wanted him to go home because they came up to the hospital, but he was like, "Nah,
I'm coming
and
back.
there's a reason why.
I'm coming back, and here's why."
And here's the reason why. So he's hanging out with us, and he's like, guys, when I was sitting there in the waiting room, I started writing a rap about camp. So if you know anything about Andrew up to this point, it's just like, rap and Andrew are not in the same word bank.
No.
The same category.
There's no part of the Venn diagram.
it's
that
separate
overlaps.
hemispheres.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're like, pray tell. And he's like, yeah, I'm working on this rap right now. When we take the bus back, I'll perform it. And we're like, what happened? What synapses happened?
Yeah, what brain
Like, in his head.
chemistry change?
Yeah, it was insane. And he was so like, yeah, I got this thing. And we're like, who are you now? Is there one of those stories where they wake up and they just speak a completely different language?
They could speak like 10 different languages.
Yeah, and you're like, I know Mandarin now. And
They're
you're
like James Bond. It's
Yeah.
like, what happened?
And so we get on this bus and we're like, oh, Andy, you do the rap. And so the bus is like on the freeway. He stands in the center and he has this little notebook paper and he's written this full-blown rap.
multiple bars.
Multiple bars, probably a good solid
Bars.
2 minutes. And he just starts rapping about camp. But he starts with his name, his new rap name.
His new rap moniker.
Who
Which-
is?
His name is now White Chocolate Crackhead.
And
It's
the,
probably the most genius
and
name.
the crack kid came because he
'Cause of the
actually
pool.
cracked his head on the pool. And I was like, he was like, I was gonna be white chocolate before, but now I was like, I can now be white chocolate crackhead.
Yo.
And he just went off, and it was hilarious. Everything was in the cadence of da 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 da
That
da
was his like rap.
da 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 da
God,
da
got some bars though.
da. And like he went off, and there was something about mafia healthcare. I don't
There
know where
was-
that's from.
It was no. It
Was
was
it from
'cause
Flame Mafia?
The church that was there with us was from like Eastern.
They're like
Europe.
So it's just racist.
Yeah, he was like, oh, they must be part of the mob or something. I'm serious.
There's so many elements to this campus.
But it was great. And what was good, like the rap was just like a mind bender for us at the time. Little did we know down the road, Andy's rap career would only flourish into probably, I think, 3 or 4 very iconic raps,
Yeah.
culminating in probably a separate episode.
Yeah, one of these days we'll go to podcast on the rap history of White Chocolate Crackhead.
His
AKA
discography.
Andy, yeah, his discography.
Do a little
Let's
needle
just
drop.
say to everyone that's listening, I personally believe these are the funniest lyrical bars ever written in the history of all human time.
It's very close.
It has to be in the top 20.
It could be.
It really just like
It
if you
killed some
add
people.
if you add like the context of the friend group and then the context of the rapper, it's
Literally came out of surgery.
yeah.
So like
it is literally a product of a miracle.
yeah, these raps. I'm not joking. Okay, the audience might think I'm joking. Some of these raps, I don't want to get too much into this right now. Some of these raps literally almost caused people to kill themselves. Of how funny they were. That's some psychosis right there. Literal psychosis.
Maybe they were mind control. Like maybe he learned like how to control people's like.
He was a super villain.
Yeah.
He came out of that pool with different.
This boy's
All
ivy,
right,
bro.
so that's trauma
Poison
number.
ivy crackhead.
That's trauma number 1 that changed this group, and I think it brought us together for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right.
Huge memory.
Now the second big event, life-changing event I want to talk about is Jesse's hair.
Oh, I got this.
Joe, describe Jesse's hair, what it looked like, what it felt like going
What does his hair feel like? bro?
I'm serious. No, going into this camp. Describe Jesse's hair.
All right. Let me explain Jesse for a second. The context.
Jesse is honestly like a brother to me. And I love him.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Getting a brother when you had none before.
Yeah, he's basically my non-biological brother. However, growing up, here's one thing that changed dramatically is Jesse was, for the most part of his childhood, except his early childhood when he wouldn't eat, he was a heavier kid. A lot chubbier. He just carried the weight with his personality. Like, the weight literally kind of was his personality. And I really feel bad, especially to anyone who's listening that struggled with weight as a kid, because myself and a lot of our other friends would tease him about it. But the cool thing about Jesse is he kind of absorbed that and just took the jabs and
internalized
it,
and
digested
it's ruined his life.
Literally digested.
So it's real cool of him.
Yeah,
that he suffered like that.
Well,
it's real cool.
See, the thing is, like, he let it become a part of his personality, and that drastically changed. And so one big part of his personality growing up that his mom never liked was that he kept his hair really long.
Woo. The length wasn't the worst part.
No, the length wasn't the worst part. I don't think. Probably the smell. Just kidding.
No, but not joking.
maybe not. So Jesse had long, curly black hair, and he has like some Russian, Eastern Europe. He's basically just short white kid with black hair.
You know, like Elizabeth Swann's dad in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh,
he's got like that wig, the curly wig.
Yeah,
but black.
But black. That's
how I always viewed it is if you ever saw like a picture of Orthodox Jews at the Wailing Wall, and you see that little bit of curly fro coming out from their hats, that was just his hair. Like, if he put on one of those little hats and told me like just some monocles and he was like, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and he started doing the little
a monocle.
Yeah, that's how I wonder if that's how they do it.
If you're an Orthodox Jew, please write in.
Yeah.
Let us know.
If
you're a deaf 7'8" Orthodox Jew,
can you swim?
Can you swim? And yeah, so he would have this greasy, curly black hair.
So greasy.
And that, along with his body, his weight, and his general personality. Let me explain how this was part of his personality. At camp, he was like, you know what I'm going to do? Because I'm like the fat kid at camp. I'm going to do this thing that everyone wants to see. Jesse's a really big crowd pleaser. He was like, I'm going to drink 64 cartons of chocolate, strawberry, and regular milk. And he ended up throwing up.
Really?
But he did finish. I believe he did finish.
Wait, he did this in one sitting?
One sitting.
No
one meal
way.
period.
It was a long It was like part of the free time.
Yeah. It was lunch into free time.
It was a marathon run.
But the kids were like, chug. And Jesse was like,
I do not
take
remember this.
So that was just who Jesse was. And
Jesse was 64 cartons of milk thrown up.
Yeah, with a curly Jew post. And so
I like the little post. That's your signal.
That's our signal.
What you're going through.
And so one thing that Jesse's mom would say to me before camp was like, hey, I will give you money to cut Jesse's hair. Because she never liked it being
I didn't
long.
know this.
Yes. And
because it wasn't just super long. It was also
kind of shaggy.
Greasy.
Maybe
I remember
mangy.
it being constantly shiny. Like, constantly.
Maybe naturally, maybe not. We don't know.
I don't think it matters.
I just feel like I didn't want to touch it, or else the liquid would get onto me.
And like lubricate.
Yeah, that was the grossest part to me.
It was actually old like Friar's oil. That's what he put it. It was just motor oil.
It's just a mop.
Yeah.
For a fry cook.
Yeah. So one of the nights, I don't remember what specific night, I was like, all right, it's time to do what I've been training.
And we had prepped.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I let other people know.
Definitely premeditated.
Yeah, this was premeditated, and I think to this day, Jesse. This is actually a confession. I don't think Jesse knows that I did it. Oh. I don't really know if he knows if it was really me.
This was your brainchild.
Yes, but let me just say it was implanted in my head. But then I was like 100%. Yeah, I'm down to ride. Like this is funny.
Give me the clippers.
Yeah,
we brought them up with us.
Yeah, so we brought up hair clippers. I think for this purpose, and some knives. I mean, not knives.
Regular scissors. Some
scissors, no knives. We didn't actually scalp him, but
we could have.
And we.
So that's Jesse, if you're listening, be careful.
You're welcome. We
All
could
right.
have turned your head into a mop head,
bro.
So
yeah,
this is now where we're at in the story. Jesse's hair, gross, but we all want to cut. Every single person in the world except Jesse. Wants to cut Jesse's hair. Jesse loves his hair.
Yeah.
So we wait on.
It's his pride and glory.
This is now Wednesday night of.
Is it Wednesday?
It is Wednesday night.
Okay.
This Wednesday night of camp. Jesse has just fallen asleep What's the plan, Joe?
All right, I was like, I'm gonna wait till it gets later in the night when Jesse's tired after like a good half week of camp, and my goal is to actually not use the hair clippers because we have to plug them in, but to go lock by lock of curly, stringy, greasy, wailing wall, and go lock by lock and just clip them off. But I was like, I gotta be stealthy because Jesse at this time, wasn't deep into sleep. Although he sleeps pretty hard.
He does sleep hard.
He was protective of his hair.
He was.
And so using Tim's loud stridor and nightly moans and screams
as our cover,
which were
it was actually a great cover.
It
was a huge asset to this, actually.
Yeah, because it's like he's perfect, the right amount of like terrifying white noise that you can't really focus on your surroundings at night. And so I would go lock by lock, and if I remember correctly, he was laying down on a bunk.
Separate. It was a cot. Separate
It was a cot, but it was up against... His left side was up against a wall, so his right side was exposed. I can't really remember this.
Oh, I remember. I have a visual memory of this exact moment. Actually.
And he would always wear a hat. I think it's also why his hair was greasy, but I think his hat was off. So I'm going lock by lock on Jesse's hair. And so it's in the middle of the night. I don't know how late, probably like 11:30, 12, maybe later. And so I have to grab a curly Q, string it out, snip. Snip. And I probably get into like, first one, he's like, that little like, it's like
little jostle.
Little jostle. Second one, he's like, starts a little sleep talking. And so Jesse's kind of infamous for sleep talking. He's like, stop messing with me. Like, why are you up? And I'm like, oh no, I'm just checking on Tim, making sure he's still alive. Because, it's
that's a very real... See, Tim is a huge component to this.
A very good asset. And so I'm probably halfway through the third snip. And let me just say, his hair is really long, so every snip is a big lock of hair. And so getting 2 done already, like, messed up his whole hair. All the way through. And so I'm halfway through the second one, and Jesse now has entered, I would say, somewhere in between flight or fight mode, or fight or flight mode. And he wakes up, he's like, you guys suck. And I can't really tell if he's actually awake or not. He says, you guys suck, come on man, you guys suck. And now the whole cabin is erupting in laughter. Because now we know the jig is up.
Yeah, because at this point, the only people asleep was Tim and Jesse. Yeah. Everyone else was awake, because we'd all known.
And so, at this point, Jesse's hair is really messed up. Imagine like 2 big, like, whole, like locks cut out, like chunks of hair missing from like the left or the right side of your face, and he's just like, you guys suck, and he tries to go back to sleep, and then at this point Tim gets up and he's like, hey Jesse man, the deed's been done, just let me take the clippers and finish the job. And Jesse
just do the plea bargain.
Jesse reluctantly takes the bargain after much convincing, like, dude, it's over. It's over.
We marched down.
We marched to the showers.
Everyone in camp is now awake.
Yes, the girls too, I believe.
Yes,
everybody in camp.
Because we're just yelling at each other.
We're screaming because this camp had post. Jerry. But now everyone's screaming at camp, and now Jesse's awake, and the whole camp's marched. The floodlights are on of the decrepit showers that we had, which might have been from a concentration camp. I don't really know.
I'd be convinced.
And we had like a water trough, like hand washing station. Like we didn't have individual sinks; it was like one water trough. And so at this point, Tim plugs it into the outlet from the outdoor showers. He just goes ham and does his best to fix Jesse's hair. Put it this way:
no matter what he did, it was a better option.
Yeah, it wasn't good before, and it wasn't good after. So I would say, still net gain, because he now no longer had long, curly, greasy, matted hair, and now he kind of looked more like a normal dude.
Yeah.
And let me just say that it was akin to like Delilah cutting Samson's hair.
But a positive.
But in a reverse.
But it gave him strength.
It gave him
that anti-virginity strength, I would say.
Okay. Post.
It's not. No.
Post. I don't think I'm gonna post that. I might probably won't.
Cutting his hair, reversed his "I'm the fat kid clown, make fun of me, I want to be made fun of."
Into what?
Into warrior.
It turned him into a stud. Slowly but surely, something in Jesse's brain and his soul changed.
And his body.
And his body, yes. His body definitely changed. So let me highlight this. cut his hair. He now gets his hair shaped up. He goes back from camp, gets his hair shaped up again.
Which looks real good.
Which looks real good at this point. And slowly he changes from I think the next summer or the next school semester, joins wrestling. And he goes from homeschool, fat kid, clown nerd, like I play with Legos, I love playing with puzzles, to full-on wrestling high school kid jock who's pretty good.
Like freaking Hercules.
Yes, strong. Jesse's always been strong because he kind of grew up on like a quasi farm. Like
Quasi-farm?
It's true.
Yeah, so he had that farmer boy strength. All you farmers that are deaf and are 7'5".
If you're a deaf, messianic Jew farmer,
Yeah.
6'8".
Right in.
And if you can, tell us if you can swim. And he goes from that with his farmer boy strength. He goes to wrestling, straight from the homeschool, fire and into like the private school jock kid furnace, going to like high school parties, and his life just changes dramatically.
Yeah.
And we all like to say, and in reality, we really believe that it was the reverse Samson effect. Like, as Delilah, I cut his hair, and I gave him a new spark, and it turned him into a totally different person, which I think we all agree was for the best.
Well, I think, like, anytime... I think people definitely, like, downplay how you look, like, shapes your character and confidence. Like, I really do think, like, the more... The better you look, like, that does boost your confidence and, like, shapes how you act.
And not even just... part of it is this, but not even just, like, natural looks, but it's, like, if you keep yourself hygienic and put together, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like some self-fulfilling prophecies where it's just like, oh, I'm this, so I can't, like, jump out of that. I have to kind of, like, fill this role.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think everyone's kind of felt that to some degree.
Yeah, like, you kind of let people, like, the narrative of you, that narrative perpetuated by other people, you kind of fulfill that because you want to. And in Jesse's case...
It was so stubborn.
It was so, like... He wanted to do that because that's how he, as a homeschool kid, thought people would relate to him and like him. And, like, enjoy him as a person. I think it stemmed from a lot of just a low confidence at the time in, like, can I be someone... Like, can I be my true self or can I be this...
Am I only a bit?
Yeah, basically, as the homeschool kids go, am I only this bit?
I think every homeschooler has that. If you're a homeschooler and you're still in the bit, let us know.
Yeah, please reach out to us. We none of us were homeschooled, but we understand that sometimes you live your life as a bit. That's always healthy. And
Always.
Not always.
Before we get to our last story, we're going to do a quick break.
We have
And
a sponsor?
first, a word from our sponsor.
Yes.
Oh, no.
This summer, are you looking for a little twist of flavor to a classic drink? Pick up Dust to Shine Seltzer, this summer's hottest new seltzer, with all the great flavors of Dust to Shine with 0 calories.
Based on Minnesota now.
Bottled, brewed, and packaged in Minnesota.
Yeah, shout out to our sponsor. Miguel's like listening now. He's like, we got...
Alright, welcome back to the BoolCast. We've been talking about trauma and how it brings people together. Definitely improves many people's lives, the traumatic experiences in this camp. But let's talk about, this might not be traumatic
It was
now,
an event.
but it was definitely traumatic for some people back then at least. Let's talk about the stargazing saga.
Ooh. How many stars can you tip? Find out. If you
Next on Dragon Ball Z Kai.
Yeah. So, refresh my memory. Was it stargazing or star tipping that they went to?
Star tipping is this stupid game you could play with your friends where you find you're out in the open, you see a star, and then you just look at it. It's kind of like when you spin on the ground, like looking at the baseball bat.
We did it on Lindstrom.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, like you stare
I
at a
brought it
star.
to these guys.
You spin for like 30 seconds to a minute, and then someone shines a light in your eyes. And then your goal is to try to stand up without falling over, but it's really hard because you're dizzy and disoriented. And so it's a great party trick, really fun. It's also a fun like initiation game if you have like a youth group or you're doing something. You'd be like, oh haha, like you know.
It actually is fun. I am a
It's
star
super
tipping.
fun. I think you were the one that like introduced. No, you definitely didn't. There was someone else beforehand.
It's just a good time. Star tipping is a good time.
But you have to do it obviously in the middle of the night.
Yeah, middle of the night where it's dark.
And you can see stars, there's no light pollution, you need a flashlight.
We had 2 friends. they're still our friends. Mark went and Tanner and these two men were single at the time. These two men did not want to be single at the time. They had met a couple of cute girls at camp, and they wanted to get to know these girls a little bit better. They tell the girls they agreed to hang out with the boys at night free time, which is like around 9:30, and they're like, oh, we should go do star tipping, and the girls agree. And they're like, okay, we'll meet you out at this field in the middle of the forest at 9:30, which is pretty much on the up. That's though it's not the most, I guess, transparent way to meet girls.
It's a real good icebreaker.
It wasn't meant to be a shady experience.
Yes.
That we know of.
But Mark and Tanner walk that night to the forest
With the lovely ladies.
No. They meet them there. They walk by themselves to meet the girls at the field in the middle of the forest, and there's an object with the girls on the field. Do you remember what the object is, Joe?
I do.
Word bank.
Did they bring it?
The girls had brought out for the boys and them to enjoy a mattress.
Why do you gotta say it like that?
What?
Post.
Wait, why?
No, that's called
for
good
them to-
storytelling, bro.
Okay, I don't know about that.
I don't like it when he does a good job. That's all I'm hearing.
So
That's a different episode.
instead of star tipping, the girls invite the boys to lay down with them on this mattress.
This is
I
some
actually don't know
freaking-
where they got the
This is
mattress.
some temptress stuff. Why do you make
They
them-
invite the boys to
These
lay
were
with them
50 Shades of Quake.
on the mattress. Do you trust me? They say.
Why are you doing
Look up, start spinning.
And instead of star tipping, it's now turned into a stargazing, and they all now are laying on the mattress together, boy, girl, as all things should be. Enjoying the stars,
Maybe
which for 14-year-old hormonal children is
homeschool?
the safest and
Don't forget the
most.
homeschool.
It's not the safest, I should say.
It's not the worst.
It's not the worst. Let's just say
It's up there.
the
Like
hanky.
if you're
Let's
a
just
camp counselor and you find out, hey, a bunch of your kids are sleeping on a mattress in the middle of the woods at night, you're like, oh, okay.
From different churches and different genders. This is not a recipe for sanctification.
Some
I
would
would
say.
say.
Some would say that. Some would say.
But at the end of the story, it is a little traumatic for some people because eventually our youth leader did catch wind of this. And I want to talk about the two responses from the parents, which I think are hilarious.
Let's just expand.
I don't know this. I don't know this part
I know
of the story.
vaguely of this.
So Tim and our youth pastor were actually very mad that they would choose to do this because obviously, if you
wasn't
want to
the
not,
smartest choice.
if you don't want to have premarital sex, it is very conducive for premarital sex.
Well, I think it was also just like one thing I remember our youth pastor time, shout out to Alvin, was saying was that it just doesn't look good.
Yeah,
You know, you as
and like you
do have
could
to care about the
easily
look sometimes.
the girls could say a lot of things that could put you at a bad place too. You know,
yeah,
what
not
I'm
that they were framing and that these girls were bad.
No, but I'm saying you leave. Like I was talking to a coworker today. You just don't go into like very like small, secluded places with another coworker, especially the opposite sex, when there's just then not just an opportunity for scandal, but opportunity to be accused of scandal.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, this didn't exist.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
it did.
No, I'm just saying this kind of thinking.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it
did.
Post.
And it shows.
Oh boy. Okay. So yes, they got in trouble from our youth pastor because that is obviously bad. It's also a little traumatic, but I think Mr. M's reaction to this was so funny. Tanner's dad was like, that's my boy.
Yeah.
Which I think is so funny.
Because, like, what do you do as a youth pastor? To be like, you're laying it's like in The Incredibles, where, like, Dash gets in trouble for the principal, and his dad's like, yo. Like, how fast were you going, bro? It's like that.
The
where
camera
you're
can even see you?
Yeah, it's like, you brought a mattress in the forest?
Yo, you got a girl on a mattress
I'm
on the
not
floor?
encouraging it. I'm just asking.
I'm just asking, was she cute though? Why I bring up this story, it might just seem like a small snippet of a thing, but it led to a big life change for Mark, the second of the boys that went out to the forest. he ended up marrying the girl that asked him to lay with him on that mattress.
Yeah.
Girl with the mattress.
Yeah, this is a great story, actually. This is a story of hope, because obviously they didn't get married right then and there. They got married...
We don't know that.
9 months later, they did.
Really?
I'm just making a joke.
Okay. They were older than us, correct?
That was a good joke.
But yeah, they got married shortly after this camp because they kept in touch with each other. And it's actually a story that I think all the parents of the kids in our youth group, that like the junior high kids and the high school kids that we all have volunteered for, kind of afraid of hearing.
Yeah, because it means that there's hope for those camp romances. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't think parents want to encourage that nowadays.
For sure. I wouldn't want to encourage it as both a youth leader or a parent. I'd be like,
Yeah, but as volunteer leaders, we always like to throw this story out there because
it's true.
It's like the
literally
kid,
a
your friend that becomes like a famous actor. And you're like, oh, like, Billy, you can't be an actor. And they're going to be like, yeah, but what about your friend? And then you're like, oh, he's right.
And all the other parents like, shut up. Don't tell your kid that.
Yeah.
Why am I around successful people?
Yeah, so this is a shout out to all the homes. This is actually a message to homeschool parents. You too, your kids.
Your
can
child
get
is going
married.
to sleep on a mattress on the floors.
Yeah,
with a
don't
girl.
send them to church camp. Not Quaker Meadows, at least.
Oh, yeah.
If that camp still exists.
We don't know if it does. And that's okay.
I think it does. I think they remodeled, but
We should go back.
I kind of want to, just
For
for like a
100th
weekend.
Well,
yeah.
like, okay,
Episode?
we've definitely talked about that. Either just like us, just like impromptu running it, but I remember like even helping in youth ministry. Like, what if we just did it?
Yeah.
Like, what if we just gave them the experience?
Our
That'd be pretty
kids
good.
now, they
Yeah.
wouldn't survive.
Before we end, I just want to give, like, this is a rapid fire rundown of all the weird, awful things that this camp was before we wrap up this podcast. Let's just go around the circle. Let's just say one thing that was awful or shady, just about the camp. I'll start.
Just a good one.
Just something.
I know mine.
My thing is that the actual name of Quaker Meadows was named after an actual meadow called Quaker Meadows, and it's in the middle of camp, and you cannot even go into this meadow. It was prohibited because there was stinging nettle throughout the entire meadow.
You just get lit up.
You would get lit up from the stinging nettle. One time a ball from basketball went into the meadow, and one of us went to get it, and we got tore up. And so this exact camp, with its namesake, you couldn't even enjoy. That's my thing.
Probably just the parasites in the lake water.
Yeah.
So there was a lake. It was a small lake. But they were like, oh, we were like super excited because like, oh, there's a pool and there's a lake. We can swim in both. We're like, no. You can barely swim in the pool. You cannot swim in the lake because, although you could paddle pole down it,
Yeah, you can paddleboard.
which we weren't for some reason allowed to. I don't think.
That's probably a executive decision by our
Yeah.
church, which is
Yeah.
a good play.
Yeah, our church was not allowed to paddleboard because of the parasites, but the camp administrators were like, this lake has parasites.
Go ahead and paddleboard.
But paddleboard, but don't swim.
Quick note, one of the games we had to play at this camp was literally jumping into this lake that had parasites that we weren't allowed to swim in and burrow ourselves down into the lake to find coins at the mud on the bottom of this lake. So I don't understand what their reasoning was for
Yeah,
that
you
game.
literally had to go like head under.
Yeah,
And when I saw that, I was like, "There's no way I'm playing this game."
yeah.
Like, absolutely not.
Not after they told us. Maybe.
Yeah, like not after they're like, "Oh, under no circumstances go in there." Come on.
Grab these coins in
Come
the
on
mud.
in, kids.
All right, Wyatt, what's your thing?
Okay, so mine's kind of twofold. So there's a zip line at this camp. However, there's a height limit for this zip line because it kind of connects from the top of this hill down to this little cliff area. But the clearance for this cliff part at the end is so small that you have to be around like, this isn't a bit, like around like 5 foot.
Yeah.
Like something very, like relatively short that most high schoolers aren't like, I'm too tall for this. Because you would literally hit your legs. You would
On the
lose,
entry.
As you're coming in, you're going to like sever part of your body. The only child that was able, like permitted to use the zip line was a girl who didn't have legs.
She got nothing to lose.
She had nothing to lose. She was the only one, and she did it. I remember her clearly doing it. And they like hooked her up, and she was down, and we're like, "Wow, you're the only person that can do this. What a gift!"
I don't even understand why that zip line
There's a
was up.
silver lining to everything, you know
But it was
what I'm
also
saying?
in a
And she
similar.
enjoyed it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
That's a zip
In
line.
a similar
Give us a fan
vein,
limb.
I also there's
That's
like
a
an
funny
icebreaker at the icebreaker at the beginning of camp because we weren't the only church there. She was part of another church. They're like, oh, fine, like those all like bingo kind of squares. You're like, find someone that has pink hair and like talk with them, and then they sign off on your paper, and then you find someone who can play drums, and like you do that kind of thing. One of them was beatboxing, which I can do. I used to do it a lot in high school, so I like practice and stuff. And so like I was like, oh, I can beatbox, so I could like fill everyone's little thing out. And so they're like, all right, so we finish, and everyone's sitting down. And then, like, the leaders are like, oh, one of them is beatboxing, so if that was you, come on up to the front, and we'll do a beatbox battle. And I was like, oh, fun. And so it comes down to me, and lo and behold, the girl with no legs. So it's me and her. And I'm probably, like, at least 6'4" by this point. I'm like 4 of her.
6'4". You're at least 6'5".
So, like, I'm huge.
And she didn't have legs.
And I'm sitting here like, this is our finalist. And she's not good.
This is like...
She's not good
yeah,
at all.
kind of.
It was bad. And I'm just sitting here. This isn't the first time I've been in a situation where the person before me flops, and then I just come in, stunting. Which will be a later podcast.
Yes. He has crushed some people.
And so this was a situation where I was just like, I'm clearly overqualified here. I'm afraid. Because now there's like this, I don't know, I felt this weird kind of pity.
Yeah,
or maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I shouldn't have felt that, but I did feel that. And so like she goes, and it's like, everyone's like, nice! And I'm like, oh gosh.
And he goes off.
And then,
he's good.
For the people.
But I was just like...
But it also feels bad because she had no legs. Mainly.
Bro.
It's like, no, I'm serious, that's how I felt. It's like... It's so weird.
It's also really funny for us to watch.
It's like that roast comic in Key and Peele.
It is like that, where it's just like, they're asking for it, but you don't win.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wins.
Yeah.
Unless she wins, but she didn't win.
Yeah.
She couldn't have won. It's like knowing the underdog, you figure out the underdog can't win. And you're like, oh, now I'm the villain. I'm the bad guy here.
Yeah, but see, most people who are the villains don't care. But Wyatt, being a sensitive man, does. Like, for me, I would not have cared. I thought it was hilarious.
It was.
It was also funny to see the consternation on his face, knowing that he had to face this rival who were clearly physically below him.
I'm glad we got to talk about this, because let's talk back to let's just end this how we started it. Trauma brings people together and also divides people. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, how thankful I am for this traumatic experience.
Amen.
Without this traumatic experience, I probably wouldn't be here right now in this house.
I don't think this would be happening.
Yeah.
As cliche as it sounds, like to everyone that's listening, this was such a formative time period and relationship building period for our friend group. It started something very powerful.
Yeah, because during the actual camp, we all were like, this is an awful camp. We're just getting bombarded by all these awful living conditions and food and games.
The food was awful. It was literally like canned food.
And yet, when we came out of this,
even the fresh food,
like nothing could stop. We wanted to be together after that, because like we were our only reprieve from the awfulness was our friendship during this.
Yeah.
And so like afterwards, we're like, I don't just happen to hang out with these people anymore. I want to pursue hanging out with these people now, because like they know what I've been through.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is what I remember, and like I just remember this quote so like vividly. As we're just talking like, oh, Tim, our volunteer youth leader at the time, and he was just like, we were just like, Tim, there's like nails on the wall. We don't have a window. We're like opening the shutters, like the girls can see us changing, and he just lays on his little bunk that was way too small for him because he's a huge dude. He's like, this is where memories are made, boys. And I just like never forgot how true that was.
Yeah.
Memories were made at this camp.
And that's where I want to end it. I just want to say, shout out to Quaker Meadows.
Shout out.
The birthplace of the squaw, honestly. And now this friend group is something that has been a deep part of my life for the past 10 years. And wouldn't have happened without that traumatic experience of Quaker Meadows. I think everyone on this couch can agree.
I agree.
All right, guys. Next week, we'll got a special guest. We're going to talk about truths, falsehoods, and mostly shrines. We'll see you guys next week.
Oh, see ya.
it's still continuing. So you can still post or whatever that. What does that mean?
Post.
Yeah.
Post production.
Post.
Actually, post that in.